Patterson Foundation
strengthens people, organizations, and communities by focusing on issues that address mutual aspirations,
foster wide participation, and encourage learning and sharing.
Welcome to Beyond the Blog, a podcast series of the Patterson Foundation. Hello, I'm Debra Jacobs. I'm honored to be the president and CEO of the Patterson Foundation, also known as TPF. Today we're going to take a glimpse into Advancing Philanthropic Leadership. I'm honored to be with John Ferguson, TPF's second fellow, who is now, he's been a fellow before, but now he is with the Indiana Philanthropy Alliance. So we're going to use this podcast actually in three sections. What led John to be a fellow, his experience as a fellow, and now he's out in the world making a magnificent difference. So let's get started right now. John, thank you for being with me today. And as I said, we're going to do three different parts. Now I'm going to undergird everywhere, so every now and then I might jump in with this. You are the consummate example of one of TPF's fives. We call it CLOSUS, and it stands for connecting, learning, sharing, evolving, and strengthening. And you as a person epitomize that, how you work, and actually your journey in life. So why don't we first dive in and let's go backwards. And you had life before TPF.
I did.
What was your wandering path and why did you want to be a fellow?
Well, first, it's great to be back here and be with you. So always celebrate opportunities to do that and come back to, as we like to call it, the mothership, the home of TPF here in Sarasota. I had a long winding path. I had a lot of years in hospitality and in bartending, restaurant management, all that basically if it was a job in hospitality, I probably did it. And then I probably taught others how to do it. That's kind of been my trajectory in life, little teaser for what's to come later on in the journey. But I reconnected with the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, had an amazing academic experience there, graduated as their Chancellor Scholar in 2016. And then I went to work a year later for the Indiana United Ways, which was the state association supporting United Ways throughout Indiana and the surrounding areas. And I worked in a variety of roles and engagement, and I kept, moving up the ladder thinking, what could be the next challenge for me? And I'd kind of grown into the most I could be in that role. And I was starting to get a little frisky looking for, what is the next challenge for me? Because I always love a challenge, you may remember.
Yes.
And that still is true today. But I went to a dinner that I almost didn't go to, actually. I don't know if I ever told you this.
Oh, we love serendipity, how it works.
was delivering a board training with some colleagues on the northern side of the state in that morning. And there was a special alumni dinner that night, and I was serving on the alumni board. So it's important that you go to these things, right? And I did not want to go. I was so tired. And I almost didn't. And something said, John, go to the dinner. You said you would. Go be there. So I did. And I sat next to the one person I always look for first in a Lilly Family School event, which is Pamela Clark, who was my advisor and now longtime friend and mentor. And I just said, hey, what's new? And she starts absolutely raving about this new partnership with the Patterson Foundation.
Thank you, Pamela.
Yes. Mm-hmm. She said there's this fellowship program. Hannah, she's been down there for about a year now, coming up on a year. And she could not stop raving. She said, I know you've been out of school for a while, but I think this might be something you would be a good fit for. Mm-hmm. What are you doing tomorrow? Okay. So my advisor that I hadn't seen in years just gave me homework, right? Happened to coincide with our lunch break for the alumni board meeting, happened to be at the same time as the information session for the fellowship. So I spent what I thought would be about 20 minutes looking at the TPF website. It's a bit robust, people, if you haven't experienced the TPF website. So it became a lot longer than 20 minutes. But everything I read resonated so strongly with me from a values perspective, from an innovation perspective, from just interesting and unique approaches to solving complex challenges. And that's my thing. I love to do that. Wherever strategy and relationship intersect, that's where I want to live.
Wait, I have to interrupt because you said the TPF website is robust. Actually, I'm pretty sure being a fellow is also a robust experience.
More so than the website, yes.
So
the website would be merely a glimpse in comparison.
all right, so you were teased, and it was like, all right, I'll throw my hat in the ring. And we selected you, thankfully, and you accepted. And what was unique about your transition here as a fellow?
Well, I was so excited to accept the fellowship on February 13th of 2020. I'll let that date sink in for just a moment. February 13th, 2020. The world, as you might recall, changed ever so slightly just a few weeks later. So it was a very interesting transition because I remember my role at Indiana United Ways, I'd already given notice. They were excited for me. Everything was good. And we were like, wait a minute, are we really going to spend 3 weeks flipping this to a virtual situation when you're about to leave? That doesn't make sense for either party. So we hugged each other and said goodbye. And I remember calling Lori Stryker at the time, who was lead of the initiative. And she's like, And she talked to you. And I think about 12 minutes later, it was, hey, if you live in Florida, you can start whenever you want. 8 days later, I lived in Florida. So you want to talk about a very quick transition. That was back at the time when we didn't trust gas stations or hotels. So it was a overnight drive, which was the right call if you're ever doing this in one trip from the Midwest to Florida, because when you get tired, the sun starts shining and it's absolutely beautiful. And then I drove up to my new apartment complex that I'd never been to. And I then moved into my apartment that I'd never seen, with things that I had bought online that I had never seen. And off we go. And I don't think I met anyone in person outside of Hannah, who lived in the same building as me. So after quarantine, we were able to do some walks and create our little pod, if you remember how those went.
Yes.
I don't think I've met my first TPFer in person, for 9 months, maybe close to a year. So it was, and keep in mind, this is 1,000 miles away from my home. Right. This is not somewhere that I have family or friends. I did not know anyone outside of Hannah, and we did not know each other well. We just knew who each other were and had a mutual respect for each other. There was nothing else there because we hadn't had the opportunity to build anything yet.
But you did evolve into knowing how to do projects and relationships virtually.
I'll tell you, it was one of those sink or swim moments because you could tell and you could sense the importance of community and connection, especially in a time when we were forced to isolate. Right? Well, most of us were anyway. You were forced to isolate. And how do you create that connection when the medium you're used to is no longer available? And it became almost gamified in a way. It became a challenge. Can we create something as cool as what we can do in person through a screen? Can we get people as engaged? And I think within 8 working days of me being here, I was running tech on a Zoom with 285 participants. And that was one of the moments I was like, okay, first of all, this is insane. And also, this is crazy cool because they were engaged. They were participating. They were smiling. There were tears. There were all sorts of different things. But it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that engagement isn't isolated to one-on-one or in-person communication. It's a style that you can adapt any circumstance to do.
All right, so I'm going to now, you gave me the word. All right, one of TPF's concepts is in a disaster, which COVID definitely qualifies. We move from cope to adapt to innovate.
And not always in that order, though.
Not in that order, and so it's not linear. Everybody goes at their own pace. But I have to say, as you're talking, what's coming to mind is how we had to when we could be in person, we had to distance ourselves by 6 feet.
Yes, we did.
What was the guide that we used to make sure we separated by 6 feet?
I don't remember whose idea this was, but whoever it was, bless you, because it brought so much joy. For those of you that love the beach or pools or inflatables, you may know that Florida has some alligators inhabiting it. We had 3 alligators inhabiting the TPF office to help us social distance properly. But they were inflatable, so don't worry. No one was harmed. But we would literally carry these alligators at times 6 feet apart to ensure that they were there. And there were 3 of them. I can't remember all their. I think it was Adelaide, Boudreaux, and Landry.
Yes.
We went Cajun.
We went Cajun for the alligators. I share this because that is for people who are considering, should I apply to be a fellow? TPF does important work.
Oh, yes.
We definitely move through the cope, adapt, innovate phase, and we have a bit of sparkle as we do it.
There's always got to be that little bit of sparkle.
Got to have the sparkle. All right, so, John, you came down, totally unique environment. I want you to take just a short time. We always say that fellows work on project management, process management, community engagement, strategic communications, and professional development.
Was that all?
That's all. Well, not really,
No, it's
because
not,
with 20 initiatives, you're plugging in it all different ways. If you had to say one of your pride points about one of the projects that you did, knowing that, hello, listeners, usually a fellow has 6 to 8 projects that they're working on at any one time. But what would be one of your pride projects that you did?
Oh, you're making me choose between.
Yeah, I know. I know it's hard because you love all your work.
I do. I would say the biggest pride point was digital access for all, which is still going strong to this day, though wildly beyond what we had imagined back in 2020. And that was such a unique opportunity for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not confident that without the pandemic, that initiative exists.
Oh, it wouldn't have. No,
right?
Definitely. It was
certainly
the
not
trigger.
in its form.
No, it was
right?
part of cope, adapt, innovate. What
Absolutely.
can we do?
Absolutely. And it was this is a problem, but we didn't even really understand the full scope of the problem. So the first step wasn't to do something. That's the difference here. Like sometimes your first inclination is to go do something, and that's great. But what if it's not the right thing to invest in? What if it's not the thing that'll make the difference? Shouldn't we understand what the thing is first? And that's really what the impetus for Digital Access for All was. It started with a question. What can we do here? Who else cares about this? What's possible? And we kept asking that question over and over again, starting with one interview. And I think it was about 75 throughout the course of that year. And then things blur a bit each year as you leave.
Of course.
But I know it was a significant amount. And it was a lot of curated resources, because after every interview we asked who else should we talk to, and it was kind of like a philanthropic hydra. 3 more connections would grow and you'd have those meetings scheduled. I'm actually not sure how we physically did all of that, but we did.
We did it.
We did.
No, never say never.
We did. Oh no, never say never. Just don't ever ask yourself how you did it, because you don't want to look back.
All right, one aspect of Digital Access for All and the connection with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. All right, so one of the things as a fellow is I'll walk down to your office and say, oh, by the way, and that means you're about to add something to your plate.
And it's usually within pretty quick order, by the way.
Yes, and so one day I said, John, you're going to be on a national webinar with experts in the Campaign for Grade Level Reading.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a second,
Okay,
though,
go
because
ahead.
experts is one thing. The person who coined the term digital divide is quite another.
Yeah, so, okay, higher, guru, gods, okay. You're going to be on a panel with them. And John's like, and what did you learn from stepping up to do that?
Okay, so first I was absolutely terrified, and you kind of laughed and told me I'd be okay.
You can do this.
Spoiler alert, she was correct. I was okay. But I was more than okay, because we get into the planning meeting, and everybody's sharing kind of what they're, and that's literally the person who coined the term digital divide is in this room. The person who created the wireless network throughout the school systems in the United States is in this room. Somebody who's led digital inclusion efforts for 30 years is in this room. And there's this fellow dude from the Patterson Foundation, and a couple other folks too, that had equally impressive resumes. everybody's sharing what their takes are and what they're going to talk about, and they're coming to me last because why not, right? Let's just add the anxiety up a little bit. But as each person's talking, I'm like, I have something here that's additive to this conversation. And when it was my turn, I said what it was, and it was about how families are important here. And if the students don't have what they need, if the teachers don't have what they need, if the parents don't have what they need, you can't focus on one or the other. It has to be right-sized and a collective issue to allow for full participation in society. Something to that effect, a little bit more eloquent likely back then. And everybody kind of stopped and said, oh, that's the perfect tie-in. You're going last.
See, so you were the finale.
So
you
I
were,
was
you
the
were,
finale.
You were the finale.
Yes.
But I think lesson from that is when you have an opportunity to go beyond your traditional sphere, say yes.
Yes.
And more than once, as a fellow at the Patterson Foundation, you had those kinds of opportunities.
Absolutely.
All right. I'd love you to take a moment, and this is the commercial, for potential candidates to become a fellow here. Why should they do it? Why should they consider giving up? Now it's 2 years plus of your life, but why would you relocate and immerse yourself in the Patterson Foundation?
So let me speak from
yes,
from
your
my
own perspective. Yes.
And then I'll offer a challenge.
Okay.
Right? From my perspective, it wasn't even a question because from the research and from the initial conversations and then the interview process, which is, by the way, every bit as intense as your fellowship will be, not from these are people grilling you for questions. They're asking very thoughtful, delightful questions, but one after the other all day long. So just be prepared for that. But it's a nice window into what your experience
Yes.
will be
So,
like.
I see when you say we work hard. Okay, I got it.
Work
Yeah.
hard and play hard.
And
we,
play
we
hard.
do all those things, and we smile through it all. But I will say the alignment was so strong from a value standpoint. And there's one of the many core tenets and values of TPF that really just stuck with me and sticks with me to this day strongly is that we undertake philanthropy in ways that others can't or will not do. And that's innovation. That's being able to do things in a way that other people aren't thinking about. You know, in my current role, I talk a lot about there are about this many very small things that are legally required of foundations, and we made up everything else. So we're beholden to structures that we put in place, which means we can remove them and rethink them. And this was a catalyst to kind of challenge and charge my thinking to be able to step into that and be able to create more momentum to adopt those practices in the field more broadly.
Okay,
Yes.
that was the John. Now,
was
what
the
about
John.
prospective candidates?
You're going to know yes or no right away. When you come down for an interview process, you're going to know. And I'll tell you what I told a friend of mine who was on the fence about whether they should apply to be a TPF Fellow. You may know her, Kelly Alexander.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? She, spoiler alert, she became a TPF Fellow.
Became a TPF
and
Fellow.
is amazing. And it was great to be with her just a few days ago. But I said, you need to give yourself the opportunity to say no.
That was wise.
Give
Very
yourself
good.
the opportunity to say no, because you always can. And you can go on with what you have planned. You can go on with anything else. But y'all, when I tell you that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that will change everything for you, I mean it, right? I mean it. If you go all in, it will give it back to you tenfold. And I think that was something many of us have done, and it has changed how we view philanthropy. It's changed how we view ourselves. It's changed how we view our communities and what it takes to build them into places that we all want to be. And all of that has mattered a great deal in our current roles, especially mine as director of member programs. I do a lot of education and networking events. And, you know, part of that goal is to not tell people to do things differently, but to hold up a mirror and expose them to other ways of thinking and being. And hopefully it affirms what they're already doing and they can accelerate it. And if not, maybe it challenges them to think differently and reconstruct some things. So I would give yourself the opportunity to opt out, because you might end up opting in, and it might just change some things that you never expected.
A couple of times during this chat, you've nuanced the I'm back in Sarasota, why am I here?
Yeah.
This thing called TPF Beyond.
Yes.
All right. And what is it?
Well, first of all, it doesnn't stand for what you think it does.
I know, so that's why you named it. See, this is the other
Yes.
thing about fellows. Fellows leave their thumbprints.
We did. So there were three of us in a conversation that were imagining what it might be like 4 or 5 years down the road, which is where we are in this precise moment. So it's really kind of special. But TPF Beyond stands for To Propel Fellows Beyond. And beyond means not only beyond the experience, but beyond what we thought was possible before we came down here. So lots of nuance in everything we do.
There's always a thread. There's always a thread. And this past weekend, which is why you're in town,
Yes.
the 9 fellows about to launch fellows came together for an immersive experience.
Immersive is putting it lightly, yes.
Okay, all right. I had tons of favorite moments, but one of my is somebody said, "I'm TPF tired."
Yes.
Okay, so but a good tired.
A good tired. So let me explain TPF tired. There's tired, which is a very low level on the bar compared to TPF tired, which is what happens when you are physically, intellectually, and emotionally completely exhausted, yet so full of joy that you can't even stand it. Because the work you're doing matters that much. You know, we were able to come together. Most of us arrived sometime on Friday afternoon and departed sometime on Sunday afternoon. So you're talking about a window of less than 48 hours. And what we were able to experience, explore, and accomplish together within those 48 hours often takes weeks or months to accomplish in a different setting. It's that level of intensity. And I don't mean intensity from this is hard. I mean an intensity from we've got 20 minutes to discuss this. Let's go as deep as we possibly can.
And everybody was in.
Great.
Everybody had a responsibility.
All in.
Everybody led something.
And it's one of the things that's special about it, it's all fellows led. And we all have those of us that have launched have very different positions. You know, I'm in a philanthropy infrastructure organization. There's people that are grant makers. There's people that are analysts within grant making institutions, people that are fundraisers, people that are communications and support staff, admin. There's all sorts of different ways that this can go. So the fellowship doesn't launch you into you're going to be a program officer or you're going to be a this or that. It helps you explore and define what matters to you, and then positions that align with that so that you can grow into the leader that you hope to be.
Each of the fellows could not be more different from each other, but there is one common. Every single one of you know you're going to change the world in whichever way you're going to do it. So speaking of changing the world, we're now going to go into you're launched, you're out there. And I'm going to go back to connect, learn, share, evolve, strengthen. Where are you now? And even since you've been there, how have you evolved?
Yeah, so I'm at Indiana Philanthropy Alliance. I'm the director of member programs there, and I have been since, believe it or not, January of 2022. So we are now in year 4. There's been 4 years. We're in year 5, technically, in that role. So that's where I am now. That has been an evolution, really, the whole time. So it started, there was a gap of, I want to say about 3 to 5 months between my predecessor and me, and it was a conference year. So by the time I got there, I had to put together a conference in about 5-6 months' time.
Conference for 20 people or 200?
About 325.
Okay, that's more than 200.
Yeah, that's about more than 200. The first one I did had 34 breakout sessions, 4 plenaries, and 79 speakers.
See, but you couldn't have been better prepared than for coming from the Patterson Foundation.
I could not have been.
And what is one of the techniques we use at the Patterson Foundation that we love to take with us called ROS? What is that?
Oh, the Ross. Yes, the run of show.
Yes.
for those of you considering a TPF Fellowship, you will learn to love and embrace the run-up show.
We don't have to go into detail on that now. That really was a test to make sure you were still using the run-up show.
I'm still using it.
I'm
still using
it.
What I will say, like we all are actually, we talk about it like, why are you not using that? It's helpful. And the reason it's helpful is because without going into detail about what it is in its entirety, it has everything you can need. And if it doesn't, it wasn't done correctly. But you create it through a different thing called living the day. And you really, you think through from the participant's perspective, what am I going to need? Sometimes you don't think about, what's the Wi-Fi? Where's the restroom? Where do I park? How do I get there? There's construction. What do I do? What happens if the speaker goes out? What do I do? And I say things like that because I had an event once where the speaker went out in a very fancy place. And I had my little travel speaker, we call him Dwayne the Rock Speaker, and he came with us. And I had a Zoom connection where we were talking on my cell phone with a handheld microphone held up to my cell phone speaker from Dwayne. So these things happen. You may not think they'll ever happen to you. They will.
Yes.
Especially if you're in events, they will.
Cope, adapt, innovate.
Absolutely.
We are there. Okay, John, you and I could talk for hours.
We could.
I want to talk about a new, you jumped in again to learn a whole new skill offering for IPA.
Yes.
And you had not done it before, and it's super cool. So why don't you share what that is?
I'm super excited about it. So I have, in the last, I guess it was about 18 months ago, been certified as a global strengths coach through Gallup. In their CliftonStrengths program. So if you ever heard of CliftonStrengths or Strengths Finder or your top 5 strengths, that is now something that I teach. And I have a workshop series designed for funders and for nonprofits. That's a 2-parter. And the first part is, an introduction to it and really understanding what does this mean for me, but in a shared experience with your colleagues. So you get some insight into who they are, why they show up the way they show up, why they may shut down if you approach them in a particular way, why they may brighten up if you approach them in a different way, and kind of what makes the uniqueness tick, right? And then the second part is my favorite. That's where we really dive into team dynamics. And it's cool because you can explore how you function collectively with all of your strengths combined. So for those of you of a certain age, think Captain Planet, but in a philanthropic exploration. And that's what you're left with. And I've done a couple of these workshops so far, and I've been invited back for both to do a follow-up and expand on that, which means that it's making a difference for folks.
Well, I'm going to go into, you evolved to, you connected, you learned, you're sharing it, but you're strengthening the organizations and people.
Well, and it's strengthening the people to strengthen the organization too, right? Because we oftentimes think like, how can we strengthen this organization? How can we make this community a better place? Well, you can in many different ways, but if you really want it to be a part of the culture and you want it to seep through to the very root of the organization, it has to be on an individual level, because otherwise it can change with the dynamics of the individuals. But if you create a culture of curiosity and you really want to lean into each other, you can accomplish anything, right? And you can weather any transition, you can weather any type of change. And these conversations, when you're looking at your collective strengths, you can talk about transition plans, you can talk about succession plans, you can talk about community engagement, you can talk about fundraising, you can talk about anything that matters to you as an organization in a new way that's focused on what you collectively do well. Not what's missing, not what's wrong, but what's right.
Okay, so as I'm listening to you, there's not a doubt in my mind that you are going to continue to exemplify closest.
Oh, always.
You're a connector, you're learning, you're sharing. You constantly evolve, which makes you stronger and those around you stronger.
A key that you said is sharing.
Sharing, yes.
All of this is important, but if you don't share it,
don't get us
share it widely,
fostering wide participation.
That's right. It matters.
Yes.
So thank you.
So we're going to wrap up a little bit.
Yeah.
You came into this chat. You might have had some things you were burning to say. I don't care what it is about. What would you like to make sure that we capture for posterity?
Oh man, no pressure with posterity, right? I would say that just embrace what's possible for you. Whether that's you as an individual, whether that's you as an organization, whoever's listening, there's something you've been dreaming about. There's something you've been exploring. Maybe it's that book you wanted to write. Whatever it is, just try it. See what happens. Step in and say yes. It takes a lot of courage to say yes. It takes a lot of courage to move across the country for 2+ years, if that happens to be something you're considering. But on the other side of it, I can tell you it's worth it. And it's something that, for me, I cannot imagine how I would be as a leader without this experience. So it certainly has shaped me. And I think I've been able to shape the experience too. Mm-hmm. So it is that two-way give and take. And we want to make the world a better place for those that follow behind us, right? And that can be as simple as picking something up off the floor so that the next person doesn't trip. Or it can be, laying out a strategy to change the world in your community and everything in between. So just say yes and give it a shot.
You are a marvelous human being. So it's an honor to have you as a TPF Fellow, because remember, once a TPF Fellow, always a TPF Fellow.
That's right.
Thank you for being with us today. And for the listeners or watchers, if you'd like to learn more, please visit the Patterson Foundation. And this initiative is called Advancing Philanthropic Leadership, that is led by Dr. Don Bowman, and he'd be thrilled to hear any inquiries. So, John, thank you again.
Thank you, Debra.